All right, y'all. Tuning in here for the final keynote session of the day, joined with John Munsell, going to be talking about building an AI first culture and a leader's guide to scaling AI across your organization. Of course, this is the final session of our day one of three of our live Scale with AI Summit, made possible by our sponsors, Howdy and Gamma. And I'm excited to be joined today with John, who just looking through your outline of what you're going to be presenting, John, there's no one better to speak on this subject than you, I believe. And I'm really looking forward to your session as we wrap up today's live. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it, although the outline has changed dramatically since I started.
I hope it's still on the same subject, unless we're going to have
Oh
to do a
yeah,
quick
for sure.
rewind
That
here. All
part we
right.
got. That part we've got, but I just needed to drive home the point a lot more. And I'm super glad that you use Descript so you can take all the ums and ahs out of this when it's finally recorded. But
Absolutely.
all right. Thanks again, Darby, and welcome everybody. I know this has been probably a long day if you've been with us for 7 hours. I want to make sure that you know from the start that this isn't just another presentation on why AI matters. This is really, in my mind, it's more about survival. And the next hour, what I'm going to share with you is a solution to a problem that I don't even think most businesses know they have. And it's one that could literally make or break your company's future. But more importantly, I'm going to show you exactly how to make sure that you're on the winning side of this program or this problem. And it's not going to be a pitch fest, although at the end, I will make an offer to those people who want to go deeper than what I've given you. But I'm going to give you the exact tools. I'm going to give you the frameworks. I'm going to give you the ability to download those after the fact. So I want you to think about this. Everybody's vision right now is that AI is going to speed up everything that you could possibly imagine, and it'll either free up people to focus on other things or increase efficiency and profitability. But what if those successes actually become your biggest threat? So I want you to imagine this scenario, okay? Your team implements some sort of an AI initiative and productivity goes through the roof. You're just crushing it. And now instead of something taking you 40 hours to complete, it takes you 4. And so now you're left with a choice. Gee, do we give people time off? Do we lay people off? You're like, I don't want to lay people off. They've been with me so long. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to reap the benefit of those gains, right? I'm going to use all this and I'm going to absorb all these new profits into the corporation. And it's only going to be a matter of time before your competitors learn how to do the same tricks. And what are they going to do? The odds are they're going to play around with pricing a little bit. And so now what you have is you've got price cuts. And so now you're sitting in here thinking, gee, we had just given people paid time off for all this stuff. Now what do we do? Maybe what we do is we give them unpaid time off. All right. But then your competitor cuts prices again because they've also gained efficiency. And now all of a sudden you've got really big margin squeezes. And at that point, you start laying people off, right? You start laying people off, and everybody else starts laying people off. And this is the big fear that everybody's got right now. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a reduction in the economy because you got people who are no longer getting a salary. So that salary is not income that's going into the economy. So now you've got reduced consumer spending. That reduced consumer spending creates a market contraction. All right. That's the nightmare scenario. That's what everybody is so concerned about with AI. And that's why I tell you, we are really at the beginning of what I would call a nuclear arms race, if you will. And if you sit around with a wait and see attitude, you're going to lose, right? So my job today is to get you not just thinking about how you can compete, but how you can enter the race now, stay in the race, and be one of those businesses that survive and thrive. All right, so I know you're probably wondering who the heck is this guy. My name is John Munsell. As Darby said earlier, I am the CEO of a company called Bazooka. We've been around for almost 25 years. We originally started off as a software development company, building web applications for people. We built our own web content management system. We gradually grew into mobile app development. We were using all kinds of different tools and tricks and machine learning and all that stuff. We then became more of a digital marketing agency. And that agency I sold off about 2.5 years ago because I saw the new frontier was AI. And so we've been working with AI really deeply for a little over 4 years now. And I've probably myself got at least 8,000 hours just mastering all the tools and everything else. When I say 8,000, I'm not kidding because I'm working 14-hour days, 7 days a week for at least the last 3.5 years. And anybody who probably Chris Lannon probably knows that. Darby knows that. He's into it. And when you're in it, man, it moves so fast you can't stop. And so it becomes a sad addiction, I might have to add. But anyway, I also created a tool called the AI Strategy Canvas that I'm going to walk you through here in a little bit. I also am the author of a book called Ingrained that will be out in December. I'm going to show you how you can get on the waiting list for that. Soon to be a bestseller, I'm sure. And I'm also an adjunct instructor of AI at LSU. I see on the call, we got a couple of people who also are some of the LSU professors. So Fabio's on the call. Fabio, I got you in here, so just stay tuned. So like I mentioned earlier, this is the scenario that keeps CEOs awake at night. But if you want to survive and thrive, you need to act quickly and you need to start creating an AI first culture, meaning you need to get everybody in your organization thinking about how do they go to AI first? How do they simplify everything they're doing? How do they ideate? How do they create? How do they do any number of things? Darby touched on using tools like Descript and Gamma. There are a ton of them. The more you get your organization thinking that way, the more you're going to be able to really thrive as this wave starts to take off. And it's already taking off at record speed. There are really four critical mistakes that we see most companies making right now. And that's first, there's fragmented AI implementation or adoption, meaning that you've got somebody in marketing probably using it right now. You might have somebody in HR dabbling with it. Maybe there's some people in IT dabbling with it. Everybody's operating in silos, and none of them are really operating in sync at all. And then you have no systemized training. So everybody's self-taught, which leads to more chaos because nobody's doing it the same way. There's no scalability. And that lack of scalability means that you have zero in terms of a process that everybody can share and everybody can grow with. And then finally, you probably have no AI leadership. And I know Chris just talked about that. That's a critical function of making this all gel for you. So what are the warning signs that some of this is probably already happening to you and that you're potentially headed in the wrong direction? First of all, you've got, like we said, departments are using AI differently. They're reinventing AI processes almost daily. The training there, it doesn't really stick because nobody's actually doing any training. If they are, they're going into places like, I don't know, you name all the online places that you can go get $5 training, or they're goofing around in YouTube. You've also got probably scattered AI tools. So there might be 3 or 4 tools that do the same thing and nobody's standardized that process. And that leads to growing frustration. And no one in your organization really knows who to go to either share their success or learn from somebody else or figure out what to do next. Your competition, on the other hand, they've got some level of common understanding. They've got scalable processes. They've got a system for ongoing training. They've got integrated tools. They've got a dedicated AI leadership, and they're experiencing accelerated growth. That's where we really want to head. Now, 77% of companies list AI as their top priority. Sounds great, but 87% of them struggle to find properly trained talent. So if you can't find talent, then what do you need to do in order to keep from losing ground? You've got to breed talent from within. Breeding talent from within is actually 7 times cheaper than replacing an employee with somebody that knows AI. And you've heard that all the time, right? You're not going to be replaced by AI. You'll be replaced by somebody that knows AI. The reality is, as an employer, the last thing I want to do is can somebody and hire somebody new and then have to take a year and a half to get that person up to speed with my culture, my processes, and my SOPs. I would much rather take a dedicated employee who's been loyal and productive and just upskill them. I can upskill an employee in 2 to 4 weeks and have them insanely productive, but the stakes really couldn't be higher. And while most companies recognize AI's importance, they're really failing at the implementation of it. So there are three pillars of AI fluency. That's what we want to create, AI fluency throughout your organization. First, pillar one is AI literacy. We call that a shared language. Everybody's got to speak the same language when it comes to AI. Then you need a scalable prompting framework, a way that you can literally hot swap variables and somebody else could use the exact same prompt, but for a different purpose. And then finally, you need a unified AI leadership, some form of unified AI leadership. So let's talk about pillar number one, AI literacy. And we say, look, when everybody speaks the same language, then all of a sudden adoption, efficiency, and innovation truly accelerate. Now, I want you to, I don't know, some people might have heard of the AI hype cycle. I don't know if you have, wave your hands, but so Gartner has this thing they call the AI hype cycle. And you can see from the chart there that there's this peak of inflated expectations, and then people dip down into the trough of disillusionment. Right now, they're saying that generative AI is on that slope downward. Now, what does that mean? It just means that people thought they could get everything out of AI, and they're realizing it's a heck of a lot harder than they thought. In other words, they originally thought, gee, I can just ask AI a question and it gives me this massive response. How hard is that? There's no user interface. I just chat back and forth. They're starting to recognize that there are biases, there's hallucinations, there are integrations you got to worry about, processing power limitations, security concerns, safety concerns, on and on. If you want to scale AI in your organization, it literally all starts with AI literacy. And of course, the key to scaling AI literacy is that everybody must speak the same AI language. That's the key. How do we do that? First of all, when I talk about speaking the same language, I'm talking about every level of discussion that you're going to have in AI. And that means starting with just strategy development. Once you develop a strategy, then you have to develop an initiative. That initiative is going to require cross-functional planning, right? People in different departments are going to have to team up, work together to create something like that. And then finally, when the rubber hits the road, you're going to need a process for engineering prompts that are shareable and scalable. All of those three areas, everybody needs to be speaking the same language. They need to have the same common level of understanding when it comes to AI. And that's exactly why we created this tool that we call the AI Strategy Canvas. And again, at the end, I'm going to show you how you can download a copy of this for free. Anybody who has ever seen the business model canvas will recognize the framework of this. It's divided into two quadrants. Everybody asks me, hey, John, how come that doesn't go left to right? Instead, it's going right to left. How come it's going counterclockwise and non-clockwise? Don't overthink it. It's almost like an accounting thing. On the left side, you've got debits. On the right side, you've got credits, right? And if you're trying to increase an asset, or increase an income, you're going to use a credit. If you're going to increase an expense, you're going to use a debit, right? So that's essentially how this thing is divided. The right side of it is where we're creating value with our prompts, and the left side is where we're actually governing or restricting that value growth. That gets a little complicated. We go into it really deep in our training, but the key thing to remember is that we're going to use the canvas when we hold these three levels of discussion. For instance, when we're talking about strategy, we're going to use the canvas now to create a strategic initiative. And the first step is breaking it into what potential three strategy types this initiative could be. That's where your discussions start. Is this an innovative product that we're trying to build? We're really trying to touch on innovation? Or are we trying to touch on customer engagement? Or are we trying to touch on operational efficiency? So when you decide what this initiative is going to be, now all of a sudden you have an idea, okay, this is going to be our focus. We're going to build an AI tool to address customer engagement. All right, so you're going to then use the strategy canvas to hold that discussion so that you can further define the initiative. And here's how it goes. We're going to start with the first block. The first block is the target audience. In other words, who are the beneficiaries or of this particular strategy or initiative? And then the reason we go through these blocks is that we want to, when we're having the discussion, think about everything up front, not get down to the end and realize we've forgotten something, or not have somebody in another department go, hey, you forgot about me, you forgot about this. So the first one being, who are the beneficiaries of this particular strategy or initiative? The second one being, what does the AI need to know about our company? Third being, what products or services are going to be impacted or targeted by this particular initiative? Next is going to be, what other details do we need to discuss? What other context do we need to have? All right, in order to make this as clear of a solution as possible, we need to provide as much context as possible about the problem that we're trying to solve. Then we're going to look at the role. What is it that we're hiring AI to do? Can we personalize it? Then we really need to understand, what's that output need to look like? What's it need to sound like in order to maintain our brand integrity? Then we're going to get into the internal and external resources that we may need to bring to bear. Do we need to create an internal task force? Do we need to engage a third-party vendor to build this out? Do we have external data sources that we need to look at, or do we have internal data sources? Then we get into the rules. Are there some rules in place that we need to pay attention to, or that we need to establish? Like in Europe, there are legal ramifications to doing certain things, and there are some new laws that are going to go into place next year, and you need to know what those are before you even start having these kinds of discussions. Then finally, we get into, what's the end goal? How are we going to monitor success, and how are we going to monitor our progress? You take all of that, all of the notes from that discussion, and you assemble them, and now you have a nice definition of what your initiative is going to be. All right, so that's going to be our top level. How do we develop strategy? We're going to use the Canvas to help us articulate all that. Then we're going to go at it one more time, but this time now we've got a team together. Now we've decided, okay, this particular initiative, we're going to need people from customer service. We might need some people from HR. We're going to need somebody from IT, might even need some input from legal. So now I got all these people that are going to now sit in the conference room, and we're going to try to hash this out. In this particular case, we're going to take what came to us as a customer engagement initiative, and we're going to deconstruct it into those three strategy types again, because every initiative is going to have pieces of these strategy types. So we're going to look at it from a lens of innovation. Does this, look at my thumbs keep going up with these doggone little things. I don't know why this happened. I keep thinking I've turned it off and it comes back on again. Anyway. So we're going to break it down into these three strategy types. So even though it came at us as a customer engagement initiative, it's got a little piece of it that might be innovative. So if I look at it through the lens of innovation, now I got new ideas. How can we make this initiative innovative? Then again, I can get after it from a customer engagement. How are we going to really engage our customers? And then we get into, all right, how do we make this really efficient from an operations standpoint? So I'm literally deconstructing this initiative into those areas. And I'm using the strategy canvas to articulate all that. So once again, I start with the target audience. We're going to refine the audience. We're going to understand who the audience is, who's impacted across all of our departments, right? Who has some say in it, and who are we actually reaching with this? And once again, I have to now align the departmental views with the company's goals. I want to identify what other cross-departmental impacts there are going to be on this particular initiative or offering. And then in terms of more context, I want to share those departmental insights and get broader context. So that's why it's great to have everybody in there to provide more feedback on how we can make this the best initiative possible. And then when we get into the role, we're really now defining what's AI's role in these departmental functions. And then we want to ensure that we're going to be consistent in our brand reputation and representation on the initiative as it goes out there to people. And then, of course, we got to now identify really specifically and allocate the resources to pull this off. And on the rules, once again, we're looking at, all right, do we have any internal rules? rules that we need to pay attention to? Do we have all of our security in place? Do we have our safety in place? Do we need to articulate rules to everybody who's going to be using this AI? We want to document all that and have that be part of it. And then finally, we get into crafting the clear, actionable request for AI across all the departments and define all of the success metrics, okay? And so now we're going to assemble all of that, and now we have a really detailed execution plan. Make sense? So that's how we pull all this together. Now, we did all that by using the AI strategy canvas as the conversational piece, as the piece to direct all that. And I want to give you this example of one of our clients, John Thompson, how he used it in his own project management software company. He's got a company called Exapron. John is probably one of the world's top authorities, at least in the top 5, when it comes to TOC, the theory of constraints. That's a project management theory that you may not have heard of, but trust me, he's brilliant. But this is what he had to say.
This is really helpful. Now, you think about that prompt strategy canvas in another light. Let me go bring it up.
John, I just want to comment on something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was not saying lost, but it's confusing with all the opportunity with inside AI and how to write prompts and so on. Personally, I was lost and didn't know where to start and so on. Even though I've been with John and listening to the round table and being through it, nothing made sense. It was all over the place, fragmented. The moment I used the strategy canvas to start writing a prompt, just one of them, it structured everything, and I started to understand how everything started to fall into place. So those of you who are just starting out and so on, that strategy canvas is probably the best way to go as a roadmap of what's first, second, third, fourth, and so on, and track yourself going down that. And even as a team exercise, I started using it with one of our guys, Offer, and we started going through that, and that put the guidance behind and some structure and the understanding of how to actually write prompts correctly. And now you can do them, I'm not saying on the fly, but you can get a pretty good answer by using some of that structure as well.
Yeah, and John, you've actually integrated it into your software too, right?
Yeah, we did. We managed to isolate our reference guide and add all our frequently asked questions from customers. We rewrote them as script and use AI to rewrite the script as well, and then punch all of that or drop all of that into a big database. And we've isolated that database, and our project management software you can write projects, you can ask it ad hoc questions and queries and so on, and it comes up with pretty intelligent answers. And if you ask it, we tested it the other day, asking it like, who is Beyonce? And it comes up with, sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know what you're talking about. So we've managed to contain and keep our database separate from the delusion of the rest of the world.
So the reason I share that with you is because they went through that entire process and they were able to create the rules and the structure around it to keep it from hallucinating and to share it within the organization and to actually create something of significance for their software. Now, when everybody uses the same prompt structure, efficiency and effectiveness increase and success starts to multiply across your entire organization. That, of course, is pillar 2, and we call that scalable prompt engineering. What you have before is you just have people doing it in different ways. You don't have any structure, you don't have any organization. Everybody's got their own methodology. After, it becomes far more uniform, and that's why we call it scalable, because you now have complete strategic alignment, you have consistency across all departments, you've got efficiency in all of your AI interactions, and you get faster and better performance and results. And then finally, everything that you create is reusable and adaptable in another circumstance. So it's not like everybody has to start all over from scratch. You've got a framework where somebody else can look at the prompt structure and go, oh, if I just swap out this container or this variable or this stack and insert this, I can get something completely different. So your learning curve is exponentially faster throughout the organization when you use a process like scalable prompt engineering. So what does that look like? Once again, we use the AI strategy canvas to help us create these prompts. And so We start with the target audience. We're going to use a combination of variables or just a container that describes the persona. Who are we actually targeting? Who is going to be listening to what we're writing? And we could use variables like what niche are they in? What fears do they have? What goals do they have? What mistaken beliefs do they have? What have they tried that failed in the past? So I can get really deep with this description. And then when it comes to the company, I want a big description of what our company is, one that's deep enough to provide the information that we need for whatever we're trying to execute right now. When it comes to the products, once again, I need to have really detailed product information. Now, what we teach people how to do is do two things. We could either make just a little small snippet that becomes part of a prompt that you can swap in and out, or we teach people how to make these really big documents that now become foundational knowledge-based documents inside of what we would call a custom GPT or a Claude project or a Gemini gem. All right. So you could do it either way. I'm just going to show you how to stack one into a prompt. All right. So now we're going to get into the context. A lot of times it's just, what are your thoughts on the subject, right? What do you think about it? So you're not just saying to ChatGPT, if we're going to take a simple example of writing a blog post, we're not just saying, hey, go write a blog post about topic X, and then you're using all the default information that it has. When you give it all these other pieces of information, like the persona, like the information on your company, like the information about your products and services, and then you integrate your thoughts into it, and now you have a much more rich, detailed output from the AI. And then when it comes to the role, you could tell it whether it's a copywriter, an SEO expert, whatever it is. The thing that most people don't grip is that when it comes to style and creating a voice for it, so it doesn't sound like AI or ChatGPT, you're going to experience what we call prompt conflict. So if you give it a role, that role is going to have inherent with it a writing style. Now, how do you calibrate beyond that? Sometimes you remove the role. What we teach people how to do is literally create calibration. So instead of saying, I want you to use a little bit of humor, we'll have a variable on it. And so we'll say humor equals 4 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 1 out of 10, whatever it is. That way, instead of you saying, hey, I want you to write with a little humor, I don't know how much a little humor is to Claude or ChatGPT. So I want to be able to incrementally increase it or lower it using this set of parameters. And we have about 50 some odd parameters that you could use, and you can go way beyond that. But you typically would only use about, I don't know, 4 or 5 inside of any particular prompt stack, but you want to be able to call other ones when you see stuff getting off the rails. Resources, sometimes that's an internal linkage. Other times it's just telling ChatGPT to go and research a URL. When it comes to the rules inside of a prompt, a lot of times I'm just telling it what I don't want it to say. I don't want it to say, I hope this email finds you well. I don't want it to say skyrockets. I don't want it to say all these other goofy ChatGPT-isms, that cheap ChatGPT-isms that you've heard, right? That drive you crazy. Delves is one of them, right? I'm sure everybody's got a whole list. I got a whole list of them that I tell it to quit saying this junk. I don't want to hear it anymore. And then you get into the request. The most problems that we see with people in generating prompts is that they just dive right into their request. They just start asking Claude or ChatGPT or whatever to do something. When you give it more material up front and then you finish with the request, you'll see that you don't have as much prompt conflict. You have a much better output. It's a much better structure. So that's why we go in this particular sequence. And when you're finished, you're going to take all of that, context and stack it up into what we call a prompt stack. And that prompt stack is basically a series of containers or variables. And you can see in this particular one, this is literally a prompt for generating what we would call a newsjack post. All right. You'll have to take a screenshot and zoom it up if you want to see what it is. But you can see what we've done here is I got a spot. I got a little container here, but I want to throw in, maybe that's a URL, maybe whatever it is. So I'm going to insert stuff here. Over here, I've got a spot to insert my thoughts. This is a little description of my persona. This is the focus that I want that particular article to have. This is the role that I'm having it play. this is some of the style parameters that I might use. This is what I'm telling it to quit saying. And then here's my request. I'm having it go methodically through a few steps. So you can see that is how you create a scalable prompt. Now, anybody could go in here now and just simply swap out these two variables and have a whole new post, and they don't have to rewrite everything from scratch. Or they could go over here and they could swap out a lot of stuff about the persona, and they could write to a completely different audience. You see the idea here? Swapping out these variables and containers makes everything change for you. It makes everything so much more scalable and simplistic. All right. So the bottom line is we want to have a framework to have all these communications at every single level. So at strategy development, we're going to be using the AI strategy canvas to help us determine what kind of strategic initiatives we're going to take. And then we're going to take those initiatives and we're going to create our cross-functional planning meetings, and we're going to use the strategy canvas to really flesh out in much greater detail what that strategic initiative looks like. And then finally, we're going to take that down to the execution level, and we're going to let everybody who is involved in it, whether they're operating the AI from the front end or they're trying to engineer the custom instructions from the back end, they're all using the same framework and the same methodologies, and they're all speaking the same language. Okay, now I want to give you another example, and this is, of course, John Thompson again, but I wanted you to see one of his examples of how he was able to take a shared prompt and do something unique with it.
I had something interesting happen over the weekend. I needed to write an article for combining an HR product with our product for a publication in Fast magazine, the productivity magazine. They were sponsoring it, and they asked us to tie their product in a blog article. And I had limited time, so I wrote it 3 times with different perspectives with AI. And it came up with an article. When I submitted it, they thought it was fantastic, brilliant, great, loved it. Yeah, so we're co-marketing with them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I knew nothing about, I know nothing about HR to that level of depth, and I know nothing about their company. But through the URL analysis, understood what they wanted, who they were, what their product line was, and how we could integrate our product. So in other words, the skill sets, the experiences, everything of each one of the personnel in a company is now available inside Exapon as a resource type, and you can select them. And that's how we combine the two together. And AI did that for me. It came up with suggestions as well. So.
Excellent. So you used one of those style analysis or one of those URL analysis prompts?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Good to know.
All right. So you see what he had done is he'd taken some of the prompts that we had created, he shared them, and they used them for completely different purposes and got an outstanding outcome. So the key here is when you're looking at traditional prompts, we call them paragraph prompts or word vomit prompts. You get inconsistent results. You're reinventing the wheel constantly, and you've got limited sharing because everybody's building the same way and they don't really understand what you're writing, and so they want to do it themselves. And your expertise is siloed. On the other end, when you use scalable prompts, your consistency goes through the roof and your ability to deliver excellence is on par, right? You're using hot swappable components and the prompts then become shared company-wide, and now your expertise expands at scale. All right, I want you to now listen to Tracy here. I'll just let you listen to what she said after she was starting to use.
So I'm actually writing a book with a colleague about prompt engineering for law professors and law students. And like the approach that you use made sense to me right away. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, that's it. That's how you do this. It was revelatory. It was revelatory. And the way that you guys went through it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, this was amazing. And I was telling somebody else about it, and they're like, how come you got to take the course and I didn't get to take the course? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like what I was doing before this course was like scribbling with crayons on the sidewalk or something. It was like, oh my God, you're a cave person. And now I feel like I feel like a rocket scientist. I'm like, oh my God, The applications are endless, and the scalability of it is just, that's perfect. That's just perfect. And yeah, this is amazing. This, I was describing it to an instructional designer, and he said, this is a paradigm shift in how you generate content. And I'm like, oh yeah, it is. Yeah, this has been amazing. I think this is life-changing. I think everybody ought to take it.
So anyway, you can see now that the power of having a scalable system for prompting is incredible. And especially when you go into creating custom GPTs, if you're familiar with that. So when you create custom AI tools, the traditional approach is going to take hours of repetitive work. It's going to lead to inconsistent results, which means you're just constantly iterating and trying to make it better and better. And because you're making mistakes and because it's not outputting with excellence, you're going to have limited sharing. On the other end, when you use our methodologies to create the foundational documents for a custom GPT, now it takes minutes instead of hours. You're delivering consistent excellence and you have a company-wide impact. Now, Fabio, if you're still on the call, you'll get a kick out of this. So Fabio is a professor at LSU and he's applying for grants. He does research, right? He's a research guy. He was in the middle of putting together a research grant proposal with, I think, 9 other universities, right? Listen to what he had to say after going through and using our process to build a custom GPT for writing grants.
One of the main things I was working on was in this grant assistant custom GPT. What I get is a lot closer to what I actually need to what I was getting before, which was more general. Things I'm getting are more specific. And but in particular, this one was like a several millions thing that we did with several other universities. And I got this email that I wanted to show you. She said, I just read through the material you forwarded me and I'm extremely impressed. You did a super job representing the linkages between science and risk management, community engagement. The writing flows so well and you are very eloquent. Thank you so much for taking the time, blah, 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 blah. And this is like an associate professor from a different university that I just met. And there are like 10 people writing on this grant. And somehow I was like
you stood out.
Impressed. I was like, I'm not going to tell you my secret.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it has been working very well. So I just wanted to show you that. And yeah.
So I'm super proud of Fabio. He did an outstanding job with his little GPT. Now, it's got a multiplier effect once you succeed at this level, right? One success, now everybody starts to recognize it and share it. Now you get departmental adoption. Once you get departmental adoption, now you can really affect the transformation company-wide. I don't know, are you still on, Jeff? I don't know, Jeff may be on. Anyway, I'm gonna let you hear what Jeff did when he created a GPT to compress time for one of his clients.
What took him a week and a half to 2 weeks to do took me 5 hours. I went through the strategy canvas. I did the build for all the parts for customer, buyer persona. I went through the whole piece. I had to rewatch some of the videos just to make sure I was doing it right. Put the writing style into the instruction box and then loaded up the knowledge base. But the big thing was, can you create a model of what you're looking for? We had examples of good and bad. And then what is the structure you really want? And as soon as I gave it that, it got so much closer. It went from like grade 5 to grade 12 in one go.
So all of these guys are using this particular process to make things better, more effective, more efficient, and faster, which now brings me to pillar 3, unified AI leadership. And now when the key is to have leaders that oversee this process, that bring everybody together. And when they encourage an environment of AI experimenting, learning, and sharing, now all of a sudden, AI first thinking really becomes part of your company's DNA. When you think about it, the processes that we've just reviewed, they have to be championed and overseen by leadership with that unified vision about how to accelerate AI adoption and maintaining excellence at all levels. And this is what leads to the sparking of creative solutions, the acceleration of company-wide adoption, the building of enthusiasm and trust, the driving of responsible innovation, and of course, the creation of collaborative success. And it just becomes a flywheel. It gets better and better, but you have to have some form of unified leadership or oversight in that. Now, why is it critical? Because without central leadership, nobody knows who to go to, right? Who's going to maintain the standards? Who shares the successes? Who drives the adoption? Who ensures consistency? But with centralized leadership, you've got a clear direction, you've got known resources, you've got shared victories, and you can really build some momentum. All right, so now let's talk about how we actually do that. There are two ways that we've seen popular out there. One is creating what we would call an AI council. That's where you have some sort of cross-functional team that gets together, they meet regularly, they share responsibility, and it's best for maybe really large organizations who are just getting started. We've seen this a lot in universities, creating an AI council to get everybody on board and figure it all out, probably because I don't know, that's just the way they operate. The other one is using a chief AI officer, right? I know Chris just talked before me. I know Chris Daigle and Chris Lannon. I think Tyrese might be either speaking tomorrow or maybe she spoke today. But there are plenty of people out there that you can call on, and they'll be your single point of leadership. They can be full-time or they can be fractional, but they're going to have that line of communication. They're going to create that clear accountability, and they're ideal for rapid transformation. But that's what brings everything together. And so if you think about it, it becomes a very powerful centralized hub. So if you think of unified AI leadership as your organization's AI success center or brain, all right, they're not just overseeing, they're actively ensuring that these frameworks like the AI strategy canvas and scalable prompt engineering are properly implemented. And these guys become the go-to resource for questions, they become the curator of best practices, and they're, of course, the amplifier of successes. You need somebody cheering people on and sharing it. It's more than just a gamification. It's getting people excited about the possibilities and the wins, but also learning from the mistakes. Mistakes are part of the process. And when you can share the transformation, then you really build a strong organizational culture around AI first thinking. And of course, when somebody discovers a better way to use AI, this particular hub and spoke system ensures that knowledge spreads throughout the organization, right? So to sum it all up, this is your blueprint for building an AI first culture. First, we want to get AI literacy. AI literacy, the more you work on it, the more it becomes AI fluency inside your organization. Next, you need to have some process for scalable prompting. You can't let people just prompt willy-nilly and have no structure around it. When you have scalable prompting, you're able to create scalable processes. And then, of course, what we just covered, the unified AI leadership. AI collaboration and innovation really depend on having somebody oversee all of that. I know that a lot of people initially think, oh, it should be IT because it's a technical product. And other people, it's like, marketing started, let's get marketing. I don't think either one of those are appropriate because one is going to have different influences on the process than the other, which is why I am a big fan of a chief AI officer. And again, whether it's full-time or fractional, doesn't matter. You need somebody to be the focal point of all of that, and somebody who really understands AI at a strategic level, who can rally the troops and keep everybody on board and moving forward. And that is how you build an AI first culture. So if you think about it, what we're trying to do is build a mindset where if they can think it, we can build it, and then we can scale it. That's really when you know you've got an AI first mentality in your organization and you're moving from idea to scale, and it's a natural part of your company's DNA. So now you've got basically two paths forward. You can stick with the fragmented AI adoption approach where you've got scattered efforts, wasted resources, shrinking margins, a widening competitive gap. We don't want to do that. On the other end, if you start to now focus on an AI first culture and mentality, you're going to experience accelerated growth, rapid team adoption, a unified approach, and you're going to have a clear strategic framework to keep yourself competitive and in the game as this thing progresses. Now, all that being said, if you want more information, this is the book that I'll, with any luck, be publishing here in the next 3 weeks. I've got a couple people that I need to read my manuscript, Chris Daigle being one of them, just to make sure I've got it all the dots dotted or the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Again, my target date is somewhere around the beginning of December. If you want to get on the waiting list, just go to bazooka.com/ingrain, or you can take a picture of this lovely QR code and take it from there. On the other end, if you want transformation at a much deeper level, we now have open enrollment for our AI Mastery for Business Leaders. In that, we teach you how to use the AI strategy canvas in great detail. We teach you how to do scalable prompt engineering. We also give you a Notion database full of prompts, and we issue those prompts as you go through the course, and we help you construct other ones as well. Everybody who goes through the course has to present a capstone project. That capstone project is a custom GPT that's specific to your job and your business, right? So it is your defined capstone project. It is not ours, but we help you go through the course and build it. So you'll get 6 months membership in our online community. We have office hours, live office hours every Friday. People come, they bring their problems. We help them walk through it. Like we've got a lady right now in New Orleans who has a construction company, and she's trying to build a GPT that will help her do cost estimations and search jobs. It's really fascinating what she's doing. And of course, we'll give you a free copy of Ingrain when it comes out. Now, when we taught this live, we charged $3,600 for it. Now that we have it all recorded and we're down to where we're just supporting people in the community and through our office hours, we brought down the price to $1,479. But because I'm a big fan of Darby, and Darby he's the inspiration for the entire scalable prompting system. His techniques were the ones that got my brain whirring and got me creating all this. I will let anybody who sees this on here get this entire course and go through the entire process for $739. And that is, you're going to have to use a coupon code to get that, right? So if you go to bazooka.com/AI Mastery for Business Leaders, hyphenated all the while, then you'll be able to get that. And the coupon code is Scale AI, cleverly enough. All right. So Scale AI is going to be the coupon code. That's going to be good through, I think that's Friday at midnight. Here's once again, a little QR code for you. And if you missed the earlier one, you can get a copy of get on the waiting list for the book. But all right, so that is 1,000 miles an hour with 10 minutes to spare, Darby. So I guess we could open it up for questions if anybody has any.
Thank you so much, John. Yeah, a lot to cover in that hour. A lot of really, like, when you're talking about prompting and like building out these structures, I think the way that you've broken and demonstrated has been something it's hard to just tell someone in a passing conversation. This is how we approach really prompting at that kind of level with AI. Let me make sure I can pin you back up here. And anybody that has any questions, please do drop them now. If you do, and as well as John, if you wouldn't mind sharing some email form of contact that people can reach out to you directly so that
sure.
We can get back to one question. Is the course for AI consultants as well? Who would be like the ideal person to go through this course if you had to point 1 or 2 people out ideally?
Basically, yeah, is it good for consultants? Absolutely. Is it good for, look, we've had one-man bands go through this, and we've had large corporations put a lot of people through it. So we've had 10 LSU professors go through it. We've had marketing people go through it. Jeff, if you're on the call, Jeff's going through it. He's an independent CMO, fractional CMO. So just about anybody it applies to. Let's see, if you want to, if you want to email me directly, there is my email address in the chat. Whoops, hang on a minute. I think I just put it in the wrong chat.
And are there any certifications that you have included with this course?
So great question. What we are doing is, if you want to become a certified trainer, We have a second course you would have to go through where we would teach you how to develop strategy, how to have those conversations with people. And then you'd have to turn around and teach us. And that one is probably something we'll be pushing forward in December or first quarter of next year. You do get a certificate from LSU that is something that you can put on your LinkedIn profile when you go through this. So that's part of it.
We got another question. I'm a special education advocate. Do you think the course would be applicable to my profession?
Michelle, I don't know whether you can come off of mute, but you have to describe for me a little bit more what you mean.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm a special education advocate, and that's what I do professionally. And so I was wondering, do you think your course potentially could be relevant to what I do? I was trying to brainstorm, and I'm thinking maybe it could help me with helping my advocates and or parents with coming up with accommodations for their child, or helping with developing, say, like present levels for a child. But I'm not really sure. That's the reason why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, so here's what I can tell you. My daughter is passionate about the same thing that you're in right now. And she hasn't been through our training. She just graduated from LSU. But what I can tell you is when you go through the training, first of all, there are a couple of things. One, if you don't find that it's worth it for you, we'll give you your money back. No questions asked. But I think what you'll find is that you'll learn so much, it will give you ideas on how you can serve these people that you probably have never thought of before. Well, you might even be able to create custom GPTs that allow them to interact with certain information to help them make more informed decisions on care or whatever it might be. So that's what I could offer you. I would probably have to sit down with you in more detail and find out more specifically the audience you serve, what problems you solve for them, how you interact with them, and then we can come up with some ideas. But at the end of the day, I don't know any position, unless you're digging ditches, any profession that couldn't benefit from really sophisticated but simple AI skills.
And I would just also recommend just connecting with John over email as well if you guys have any other questions, or if this would apply to what you're looking to do and accomplish. I think it's one of those things that once you learn a process like this and that level of prompting and how to string things together and really bake it into how you operate, it's going to change a lot of just ways that you approach and interact with AIs inside of your own business and organization.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me.
What a way to end off day one. Thank you so much, John, and everyone here for tuning in with us. And until we see you guys all in day two, keep Common AI on and have a great night. Cheers, y'all.
Thanks. Take care.